Nigel from Hong Kong. I have been possessed by a dragon for 5 years, but only discovered it 4 months ago. The person seeing it said that in my past life, I have promised to help it accumulate parami. So this life it comes to find me. But up till now, I still cannot communicate with it, and my consciousness is like dragged and shrink to inside, affecting my life greatly. May I know what I should do? Thank you, Ajahn.
So Lumpur is recommending for you to take triple robes to a monastery along with flowers. If you can find lotuses, then that's good, 5 lotuses, and candles and incense. And so ask for the help with the barami of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, to kind of help to relieve this and to spread metta to your karmic debtors, those you've harmed in the past, perhaps a dragon that is sending the kind of current or the force of its mind that may be controlling you. And so may the barami of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha help. And so spread metta to this dragon that you may have made a commitment with in the past, whether you're aware of that or you're not aware of that. And that you can build barami together, but to ask for this dragon to not kind of disturb you through your body or your mind. And each time when you make merit, when you meditate or chant or make offerings, then share that and spread metta with your karmic debtors, with all beings, and including this dragon. And so spread metta. And through this method, then this may reduce what you're feeling, may get better.
Anonymous. Dear Longpo, when I try to be aware of the breath, most of the time the breath becomes unnatural, and sometimes even the mind and the body becomes quite tense. Why did this happen, and how can I work with it? Is anapanasati indispensable in our practice? Thank you for your guidance. Much appreciated. Thank you, Ajahn.
So you notice that if you're not trying to be aware of the breath and it just flows naturally and adjusts naturally, that if the body needs more oxygen, then you start breathing faster. Or if you feel angry, then the breaths flow faster as well because the body's burning up more energy. And so when you come to practice, if you try kind of focus too much, then the breath stops being natural, and that's not right because that causes stress in the body and the mind. And so it's important to allow the breath to just flow naturally. You see that if you're just doing kind of something else, not meditating, then it's not like this. But it's when one comes to focus on the breath, then one starts to try to control the breath. So you can try to count the breaths, like I've explained before. So on the in-breath, count 1, on the out-breath, 1, and then just carry on counting in pairs until you get to 5. And then come back to 1 again and keep going with that, increasing that every time by 1 pair until you get to 10 pairs. But asking whether it's necessary to develop anapanasati, this mindfulness of the breath, it's kind of a middle meditation object, one that all people can use to train in all types of characters. The people who are inclined towards greed or hatred or delusion, or more inclined towards wisdom or lust, they can all train in this mindfulness of the breath. But perhaps try thinking of the Buddha instead, as Buddhanusati, recollecting the virtues of the Buddha, his purity, how he's able to defeat the defilements through his wisdom. So you can recollect in this way, reciting Buddha in your mind, just reciting Buddha, 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 and there's no need to pay attention to the breath. So try doing this so that your mind comes to peace. And whatever you're doing, standing, sitting, walking, lying down, recite Buddha a lot. If the mind starts thinking, then recite Buddha, 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 bringing the mind to peace. And when it's in a calm state, then you can try coming and observing the breath. And here you'll notice that it's more subtle, and perhaps you're not controlling it anymore. So try doing it this way, starting off with this recollection of the Buddha. And through that, you'll probably get better results than trying to focus on the breath straight away.
Dear Longpo Anan, how to balance our desire to develop Kanti in this life by enduring our stressful living conditions, with letting go of as many stressful conditions as possible to create a more peaceful environment for practice. I recently left a job which was too stressful due to constant contact with a person who bombarded all my senses of identities and views. I realized there was a lesson there to be learned, but I was not strong enough to deal with it. I think I already have enough stress just taking care of my family. I feel more peaceful now and with much more space for practice, but I got this feeling that I lost the opportunity to strengthen Kanti. Could you please offer some advice? Thank you, Ajahn.
So we can't afford to believe our own feelings and thoughts. It's like when we receive sensory experiences, we feel very stressed by that. And then we think that we want to run away from them, try and get away from these things that are causing us a lot of suffering. We're not able to endure them anymore. And it's because the mindfulness and wisdom is insufficient. But then if we try to use our forbearance a lot and really just endure with things a lot, then some issues can come up with that as well. Feel a lot of stress, both in the body and the mind. And if that carries on, then you may develop kind of nervous disorders or neuroses. So we need to be aware of our own strength as well. It's like if we're trying to lift something, we need to be aware of how heavy we're able to lift, how heavy the objects are that we're able to lift. So we need to know our own strength. And if we think that we're able to endure with these very difficult things, and it's like we're trying to lift something and carry something that's really heavy, but we don't have the strength to do that, then we may end up by breaking our backs. And we just don't get to kind of the end of that path. So we need to know our own strength as well. And if we're not able to take that, we're not able to endure with that, then you can avoid those situations. And so like you've stopped doing this job, and that's given you more strength to deal with the stress of raising your family and given you more time to train your mind as well. So you shouldn't think that this is a wasted opportunity to develop Kanti Parami, because you already have a lot of opportunities to do that and to develop this forbearance with the many challenges that just we normally experience in our lives, and all of the different emotions and sense experiences that we meet with. And then when the body develops illnesses, then there's a great amount of suffering and pain there. And that's an opportunity to develop this khanti. Like during a retreat like this, you can practice sitting for long periods, and pain comes up in the body, and that's an opportunity to endure. And so there are many things that we need to meet with that require our forbearance. And maybe if they're external things, we're able to get away from them. But the deterioration of the body is something that we can't run away from. So we need to learn how to endure with that, with the pains of the body. And this here is a good opportunity for us to develop this endurance. And so having more time now, and this is a good opportunity that you have, and may use that to meditate a lot, preparing yourself for the suffering which is awaiting in the future by preparing and building up the energy of your body and mind to be ready for those challenges.
Dear Ajahn, so there are 3 parts to this question. Number 1, what is the best way to keep the teachings in mind when I am absorbed in my duties throughout the day? Number 2, is it wiser for a lay person to take up chastity or to try to be a good husband and parent? Number 3, how can I come to have faith in the teaching on the continuity of consciousness after death? Thank you, Ajahn.
So it's the best way to keep the teachings in mind when you have duties throughout the day, have to meet with many chaotic things. Well, this is something that one needs to train in. In the beginning, having a constant recollection of these teachings is probably beyond one's ability. But whenever we experience any sensory experiences, then just try to have a lot of mindfulness right there in the present moment, to the most that we're able to do that. And whenever that you are thinking or speaking, doing something, listening, then be aware of that, know that. And if there's time during your work that you're able to not think, then recollect the Buddha and his teachings frequently. And so the Dhammas that you can recollect are anicca, dukkha, anatta, this change and stress and not self of all things. So do this a lot and try to, whenever the eye sees a form or you hear sounds, then contemplate into the changing nature of that. But initially trying to do that constantly, it's not going to happen. So you have a lot of work to do as well, many duties that you need to perform. But when you're able to put those down or put those thoughts down, then bring this recollection of the Dhamma up, the teachings of the Buddha, how all things are changing and stressful and not self, and try to recollect this frequently. Or you can recite Sabbe Sankhara Anicca, Sabbe Sankhara Dukkha, Sabbe Dhamma Anatta, that all conditioned things are impermanent and stressful, and all dhammas are not self. So contemplate this a lot. And as you do that and carry on training, then your recollection of that should get better, and the mind can gain more peace. As mindfulness becomes constant, and this practice develops in stages until you're able to know the Dhamma and see the Dhamma. As for the second question about a layperson and trying to be a good husband and parent or taking up chastity, and so one needs to perform the duties that one has. And so trying to be a good husband or a good parent or a good child. And then when one has the time to put effort into the practice, and you can take up this practice of chastity on some days. So maybe like 1 day a week. But with the rest of the time, then you need to perform your duties well and do the work that you need to do. So perhaps when you have the time, then you use that to train in meditation. Because when you're meditating, then that is taking up this practice of chastity right there. And then the third question about developing faith in the continuity of consciousness after death. We'll just try to have a lot of mindfulness here in this present moment until you gain an understanding of the Dhamma. And perhaps as you do that, then you will come to know about the continuity of the mind through seeing that. And by seeing and understanding this present moment, then one can know and understand the future. So just be really intent to stay in this present moment a lot.